Hello everyone, my name is Grayson, also known as the Lulu Trojan, and today I'm going to be doing a book review. Sorry if I look a little bit busted, I just got out of the shower and I had a full day of work. It's currently 12:30 in the morning, but I figured I wanted to give you guys some content. So here is my book review. So I got this book a couple of weeks ago with my friend Sarah, and I remember this being on my TBR for a long time. I did not think it was going to take me like over 6 years to read it. But yeah, so I have heard about this book, I would say probably since 2018. So actually, it's been closer to 7 years. Yeah, that I've wanted to read this book. So it came out. When did it come out? Me not knowing. Wait a minute, that's not true. Wait, that can't be right. It says this came out in 2022. Am I tweaking out right now? Hold on. Okay, I guess after some research, it looks like, sorry, not these glasses. After some further research, it looks like it's true. And it did actually come out in 2022. That's crazy though. Like, I feel like I've had this on my TBR for so long. Like, I guess it must have just came out whenever I found out about it. Like, I have heard of this book for a long time. So I guess when it came out in 2022, I put it on my TBR. So I thought it had been 2018, but I'm not a liar. So also I did put my glasses on because I literally couldn't see anything before. So sorry. If that's gonna be distracting and you can see the reflection, I don't know what to tell you. Let me try something, hold on. Okay, I feel like that's a little bit better. I feel like you can kind of see me a little bit better, but I guess we'll see whenever I get this uploaded. So yeah, the book is called Cleopatra and Frankenstein by Coco Mellors. So this first little bit is going to be non-spoilery, and I'm just gonna kind of give you like a synopsis after reading it. And then I'm gonna go into spoilers, but I'll give you a warning before I start. So I just want to start by saying I did give this a 4 out of 5 on Goodreads. I would give it a 4.5 if I could. It definitely was not a full 5, just because I have notes, but like I did have a few issues. I loved the way that the author writes unlikable characters. Like, I think that is something that she did so well. Basically, this story is about two people, as you may have guessed, Cleopatra and Frankenstein. Now, these aren't their real names, it's just their nicknames. Their names are actually Cleo and Frank, but they're in a green card marriage, which just basically means that Cleo lived in London. She needed to come to the US, but she couldn't do that without a green card. And to get that, she married Frank. But I mean, it turns into like a love. And so, like, the book is basically navigating that marriage and the relationships that surround them and the friendships and the family. And it's really, really heartfelt, but it's very deep because it's multiple points of view. My favorite, so we get a couple points of view. So obviously we get Cleo and Frank, and then we also got Quentin, who is Cleo's best friend, and he was struggling a lot with gender identity, and I really liked how she went about talking about gender identity, because I don't think that that is seen enough in books these days, and if it is, I'm just not reading them. So I was really glad to be reading a little bit more about that. Me in this 4XL shirt, sorry, I probably look homeless, but I just took a shower. Anyway, So yeah, we got Quentin's perspective, and we'll get there, but she kind of wrote him worse towards the end. Um, but I liked his perspective at first. I think that his perspective was really fresh at first on a gay man and a gay man's view of not only his gender, but how he fits in to the social surrounding and how he is meant to have relationships and stuff. So next we get Zoe, who is Frank's sister. We get her point of view. And these are not in order. It skips back and forth between all of these people, but I'm just naming all the main characters. It skips to Zoe at some point. Zoe is Frank's sister, and her main storyline is that she needs money, that she's broke and she needs money, which, relatable. So, loved her. We'll get more into that in the spoilery section. Eleanor. We'll get to that later as well. Anders is Frank's best friend, and his only really redeemable quality that I can remember is that he's handsome and that he's slept with half of the people in the book. Like, he's literally slept with everybody. And then finally, Santiago, however you want to say it, that is the guy that catered Cleo and Frank's wedding. And his perspective is not one that I thought I would be getting. Like, I guess it makes sense because Coco seems like she did all that for a reason. But Santiago's perspective comes more towards the end of the book, I would say, maybe the middle-ish towards the end. And it was really refreshing to see him because his section dealt a lot with weight issues, because all of the sections, it's kind of obvious that like they're all going through something, and so to hear each person focus and hone in on like what was wrong with them and like how they were thinking, and it was really nice and refreshing to like be reminded that we all have things going on, like regardless of what we're thinking about. Like, I would see a character saying something and be like, but the other people don't even know about that. Like, that's crazy. So yeah, I definitely think this arm, hello, is that a vein? It is, hello. Anyway, ooh, all my emails coming through on my MacBook. Anyway, so yeah, overall, I think that to sum up the non-spoilery section, it was a 4.5 out of 5. But on Goodreads, you can't do that, so I just gave it a 4. But yeah, it was pretty good. If you like romance, read this. If you like character study, read this, because this is very character heavy, not very plot vibes, if you get what I'm saying. It's not very like, oh, I'm going to read this because it has a good plot. It's more of, oh, I'm going to read this because all the characters intrigue me and they interest me and I want to learn something new. So, with all that being said, there are some trigger warnings in this book. Self-harm, alcoholism, suicide, body issues, gender identity. So if any of that is triggering, maybe don't listen to me talk about it. And also, if that's triggering, maybe don't read the book. But I think that for the most part, this author did a really good job of not being offensive with anything that she wrote, and it was very beautiful. Okay, so now to get to the spoilery section. So, on my notes to start off, I said, I like the way Coco writes an unlikable character. And boy, did she write an unlikable character. At first, I hated Zoe's character. Whenever they were at that dinner and she was just being a complete thorn in the side to like Cleo and like making her feel so unwelcome. And this was like right after her and Frank got married, because her and Frank get married in literally the first couple pages of the book. So, like, to see Zoe immediately hate her with no rhyme or reason was crazy to me. But I really do like the way that Coco kind of softened up Zoe over time, and like you do get to see obviously her progression of a friendship with Cleo, and by the end of the book they are friends and they end up talking more than her and Frank. So next, the slow progression of happy relationship to the honeymoon phase, finally snapping whenever Cleo first brings up Frank's drinking problem. So up until Cleo brings it up, like honestly, her and Frank did seem kind of like cutesy perfect to me. Like they didn't seem like they really had many issues. I mean, they were kind of like all over each other. The sex was great. They loved each other. It all felt very fresh and new. They were in the honeymoon phase. They hadn't really had an issue with each other yet. They'd also only met each other like, a month prior, I think. I don't even know. But it's like immediately when Cleo brought it up, something snapped in Frank, and he was like, oh, woe is me. And for the rest of the book, he was always woe is me when it came to Cleo. I also have that I love all the different perspectives, which I did. The whole book we were getting third person. Oh, okay, yes. So the whole book, basically, you're getting a third person POV of Frank and Chloe, Frank and Cleo, and it's like their marriage at first, and then it kind of dives, like I said, into Quentin's story of him and his gender identity, and then it goes into Zoe and her financial problems, and then it goes back to Frank and Cleo, and then we are hit with Eleanor, and y'all, Eleanor is one of the best written characters that I have read in a long time, and I know I sound like I'm glazing, but she genuinely was so refreshing. Like after hearing about this relationship drama and turmoil and these unlikable characters like Zoe, to be flipped back into a brand new perspective was so refreshing to the mind. Like whenever I first read Eleanor's perspective, I was like, oh, thank God she gets it. So Eleanor is me saying all this good stuff about her. She actually is the person that ruins Cleo and Frank's relationship. So she starts working in the advertisement office that Frank works for. And since Cleo is a stay-at-home person, she just does her art, but she hasn't been doing that. She's not really getting a lot of face-to-face time with Frank because he's a workaholic and an alcoholic. He has a very addictive personality. So the marriage is going good until they fall on hard times when Cleo brings up the alcohol, and then Frank starts working a lot, I noticed. He starts working a lot more, which obviously that happens in real life too, where people work a lot more whenever they have relationship issues to kind of like cover that up and hide that. And then that's where he meets Eleanor, and Eleanor's POV is told from first person. That is what made it so amazing. Is like it really felt like I was in her head. Like I feel like for all the other characters, I felt very omnipresent and omniscient, like I knew it all. Obviously, Coco wanted you to do that, but I think that it was just very, I keep saying the word refreshing, but that's the only way I know how to put it. Like, Eleanor's perspective was so good. To be a mistress, the other woman, her perspective was so good. And she is flawed, and she knows she's flawed, and she knows her family is flawed. Her dad's in the hospital. She goes through that the whole book. It's like traumatizing for her. So yeah, I think that it honestly would be a tie between Eleanor and Santiago from my favorite perspectives. So yeah, I mean, yeah, I have in my notes, I knew that an other woman plotline was forming, like, just like, I don't know, the way that Coco was writing certain things, I was like, oh, and also knowing the book was very character vibes and not plot vibes. I kind of knew that like some person or something would have to come in to disrupt this because it wasn't a very plot driven book. So it's not like, oh, all of this exposition is happening to move the story along. To move the story along, you kind of had to introduce a new character. And that's what Coco did with Eleanor. So beautiful. Claps, snaps for you. Coco, I really think you did a good job with that. OMG, okay. So right after we get that, in my head I'm thinking, okay, Frank, you're a nobody. You're about to cheat on Cleo. You are about to ruin her. And at this point, I was kind of leaning towards Cleo's side, and I was like agreeing with her perspective a lot more. And like I did think that Frank needed to cut back on the drinking, but I also think that Cleo is very overly critical. And she also has some things going on, like some mental health issues. That is mainly Cleo's storyline, is how she has mental health issues because her family is horrible. She's an artist. And by the end of the book, like, you do see her commit self-harm, but it does lead to something so beautiful at the very end whenever she shows Frank that art installation and just holds him as he's crying. Oh my gosh, y'all. I read that in the car today and was like, I wasn't sobbing, but internally I was like, wow, I feel this so heavily. And that was such a beautiful thing for her. Anyways, back to what I was saying. I was siding a lot with Cleo in the beginning because I felt like Frank was in the wrong, but right after we get Eleanor's perspective of her and Frank flirting or whatever in the office, we immediately flip to Anders' perspective, and I'm like, oh, what does Anders have to do with anything? Like, oh, he's just... Because at the beginning of the book, we're told that, like, he slept with Cleo as a one-night stand, he slept with Zoe as a one-night stand, he slept with Cleo's best friend as a one-night stand, like, all of these people. And I'm thinking, okay, what, honestly, is he going to add to this plot? Like, honestly, I mean, even though there is no plot, like, what is he going to add to anything? I have written the plot twist of Anders and Cleo getting together so easily, ... my jaw dropped. Y'all, I was like, and it like snapped me back to reality and woke me up and made me excited to read this. Like, I know that sounds so bad, but we had not had something interesting happen other than like the plot line that I saw coming of Eleanor and Frank. So seeing that Frank and Eleanor did not really get physical, really ever, until the end of the book when Frank and Cleo are well over. So to see Cleo get with Anders so easily and cheat on Frank, I was just baffled. Capital B, baffled. It was so crazy. I remember reading that and being like, I need a minute, like, that just happened. I remember my jaw dropped in real life. And normally when I'm reading, I'm very unresponsive. Like, I'll laugh if something is very funny, but I do not, like, verbally react or physically react if something happens in a book. If somebody dies, one of my favorite characters dies, I don't really I'm just like, oh, I'm so into it. Whenever I found out that Anders and Cleo were sleeping together, my jaw dropped. And the way that they got together so easily was honestly sickening. Like, it was just so crazy. And I did also love how the book could go from topic to topic and go from a moment of seriousness talking about affairs to, I mean, Cleo was literally worried all about this affair, and then the next chapter is her getting a fish and her and Frank naming it Jesus, and then it turned serious again when Frank accidentally flushed Jesus, and that was one of my points as well. As I said, Frank flushed Jesus, and I had crying emojis because that's just crazy. Like, not a fish. Did I say a fish? They didn't get a fish. They got a sugar glider, which was crazy. Just such a weird plot, honestly. I also have that I don't think I have this on here, but I really liked the way that Anders's point of view shifted at the beginning, because whenever Cleo would tell us, like when she had the one night stand with Anders years back, that he was just very cold after it happened, and he just kind of like sent her on her way. Being in Anders' perspective when it happened and when they did sleep together, I felt so bad for Cleo. Like, the writing was so beautiful and sensual and flowy and romantic. And then the minute that they're done sleeping together, he goes back to being cold. The verbiage that is used turns more icy, in my opinion. And I love when authors do that. I love when authors get into the mindset of a character and can actually write like the character and not be too removed from their own world to know the emotion that needs to be driven into the reader's mind at that moment. So yeah. I said, Cleo feeling the need to self-harm honestly rings so true to her inner dialogue so far. Her perspective, though others are beautiful, is always the most artistic, which reflects her job and her mindset. The fact that whenever I was reading Cleo's perspective, it did always seem to be more romanticized, and like life is romanticized, and all of her art and her relationship. And then whenever things would be sad, they would be beautifully sad. Like, it was never like straightforward, like hideously sad. It was more like sorrowfully sad, you know? And I love that. I love that it seems like Coco did her research, on art, hello, her research on artists, but also like Frank is such a logical person because he works for an advertisement company. It all just worked for me. I'm just gushing about this book for 30 minutes, but what do I know? Oh, and I loved how Cleo said that being unloved by all these men that she has chosen has isolated her and made her feel like she's on an island. Like, girl. How powerful. And it just was so, I don't know, it felt like she saw me in that moment, like to put her all into all these men that just wanted to have sex with her. And then she comes back and feels so empty, and that's why she self-harm. It's crazy. Like, it's amazing. I love the way that the author wrote this book. Now, I am gonna give a few of things that I thought were wrong with the book. I think that some of the more sensual scenes were overly descriptive. No need, and I'm not a prude. I love smut as much as the next person, but it comes to a point. It gets to a point where it's overdone and nobody wants to read that, you know? Like, there is no reason why I should be reading about Anders and Cleo doing different things for 4 or 5 pages. Like, no. There is no reason. I get that it's a character-driven book and not a plot-driven book, but hearing that they were sleeping together at all was enough. Like, I didn't need to know how it was happening, you know? Another thing is, I hated how she finished the book with Quentin's perspective, and she started the book with Quentin's perspective, and like him getting with this guy named Alex and taking him in and showing him drugs, because we find out that Quentin is heavily involved with some substances. And I felt for him at first because of the whole gender thing, and I was like, oh wow, this is going to be so beautiful to see him unfold the rest of the book. And he just got out of this relationship where this guy made fun of him for being so feminine. And then it's like, we hear from him sporadically, not via him, but like from Cleo and Frank's perspective, and where they are witnessing Quentin and him crashing out and doing more drugs and just like sheltering this man. Like, it just made it made me feel like I know that not every gay person has to be written like the savior or the hero, but it feels like whenever I'm reading a book and the author is writing a gay character that's a side character, they always for some reason are like overly flawed or like are not perfect. And I get that gay people are not perfect in real life. I know that I'm not perfect. But it just felt overly like, wow, you really think gay people are hideous, evil people with drug addictions? Like, I don't know. And I mean, I guess they are. But that was one thing that I really took issue with. I mentioned earlier a man named Santiago, how he was one of my favorite perspectives. I love that we only heard about him in a couple of sentences earlier, and suddenly he was a perspective at the end of the book, talking about weight and his eating journey. Sorry. And I just love the way that he stood up for himself at the very end with Anders saying, please don't call me your big friend anymore. Like, I'm more than that. I'm more to you. I should mean more to you than that. To kind of wrap things up, Eleanor's final perspective, and I saw someone say this, and then after I read it, it made sense. Eleanor's final perspective, which is the second to last chapter in the book, the second to last chapter and the last chapter are two of the most beautiful chapters in the whole book. The second to last chapter, Eleanor's perspective, is the best chapter. And then the final chapter is like a close penultimate. So, I mean, I felt really bad because in Eleanor's writing, it's very sporadic, and I mean, there are short things like, today I will write, we'll see about that, I say, and go run a bath. Better believe it, I say, and turn on the shower. Never gonna happen, I say, and saunter back to the bed. Just try me, I say, and march myself to the desk. And like, that's a whole little section, and they're all pieced off by stars. I thought that was so cute that hers was the only perspective that did that, and hers was the only perspective that was told in first person. So, I mean, this whole chapter about Eleanor actually feeling bad for Cleo and wanting Frank to go see Cleo one last time in Italy, and Eleanor talking about her dad passing away, and she waited so long to meet a man, so long to have someone in her life that makes her feel the way that Frank does, and then to know that Frank reciprocates that and is going to be there for her, we assume. It was just so beautiful. And I know that I shouldn't be advocating or saying that I liked someone who caused an affair, but I gotta hand it to Eleanor. She was one of the most likable other women of all time, in my opinion. So yeah, my final thing that I wrote was beautiful ending. I love that the book starts with the relationship and ends at the exact moment that they are through with each other, despite vowing to always be with each other and love each other. Like, they always vow to be in each other's hearts and whatever, and oh, I'll always love you because you'll always have a part of me. But I love that the book started when they first met in the elevator, and then it ended with the divorce papers in Italy. I think that was so beautiful. And also, the random trip to Italy, like, I get that it honestly set the scene better for me. And I am going to try to cap this off at 30 minutes, so I am about to go. No, I'm not. I'm going to also show you a few of the books that I might be reading. So, I think that the art installation that Cleo showed at the end was beautiful, and I just really appreciated that. And it was just a really good wrap up to the book. So yeah, overall, 4.5 out of 5 stars. Beautiful book, loved it. Now I'm going to talk about what else I could be reading, possibly soon. So thank you guys so much. Okay, we got to make this quick. So option 1 is going to be Unbirthday by Liz Braswell, a retelling of Alice in Wonderland. As Good as Dead, which is the third and final book in the A Good Girl's Guide to Murder series. I'm really leaning towards this because I really want to finish the series. And my final option would be The Jungle by Upton Sinclair. My friend Sarah also recommended this to me, and she told me that it was very political. So I guess you guys will see in the next video what I chose to pick and read. And I don't know if I'll be giving a reading vlog, probably not. It will probably most likely be a book review again. But yeah, thank you so much for coming along to the starting of my channel. I know that the previous video was kind of just all over the place, and I know that this one probably seemed like it too, but I really do love talking about books in a way that I will be able to remember them forever, and knowing that this is on the internet, even if no one else views this, like, this is for me. If I do somehow gain a following from this, I'm only gonna remain true to myself. I'm not going to do this for anyone else but me. So again, thank you so much. These are my upcoming reads: The Jungle by Upton Sinclair, As Good as Dead by Holly Jackson, and Unbirthday by Liz Braswell. So one of these three will be next. Stay tuned to see which one I chose. And this has been a book review of Cleopatra and Frankenstein by Coco Mellors. So thank you so much for watching. My name is Grayson, and I will see you in the next one.